Hello everyone, welcome back to News of Asha. Today is 11th August 2023. Let's see what's happening in the world today. Domino effect. India rice export ban puts market on edge for copycat curves. Mumbai. India's rice export ban has the world market bracing for similar actions by rival suppliers to avoid potential domestic shortages as sellers try to fill the 10 million metric ton gap left by New Delhi, stoking concerns over already high global food inflation. India's latest restrictions are almost identical to those imposed in 2007 and 2008, analysts says, which triggered a domino effect as many other countries were forced to curb exports to safeguard local consumers. This time around, the impact on supplies and prices could be even more sweeping, as India now accounts for more than 40% of global rice trades, compared with around 22% share 15 years ago, ratcheting up pressure on rice exporting nations such as Thailand and Vietnam. As you can see with this chart here, India exports more rice than the top 3 countries combined. Limited surplus. This time, rice exporters will be unable to increase exports by more than 3 million metric tons a year as they try to fulfill local demands amid limited supply, 3 dealers with global trade houses told Reuters. Thailand, Vietnam and Pakistan, the world's second, third and fourth biggest exporters respectively, have said they are keen to boost sales since demand for their crop has been rising after India bans. Pakistan, recovering from last year's devastating floods, could export 4.5 to 5 million tons from the current year's 3.6 million tons, according to an official with the Rice Export Association of Pakistan, REAP. But the country is unlikely to allow unrestricted exports amid double-digit inflation, the official said. The leading importers of non-basmati rice includes the Philippines, China, Senegal, Nigeria, South Africa, Malaysia, Cote d'Ivoire and Bangladesh. Global prices has risen by around 20% since India's ban. A further 15% gain could trigger restrictions by Thailand and Vietnam, according to traders at international trading companies. The question is not whether they will limit exports, but rather how much they will restrict when they will take such measures, said New Delhi-based trader. This week, rice prices in Thailand and Vietnam soared to 15-year highs as buyers rushed to cover shipments to compensate for decline in India's exports. We have to see for how long India's restrictions remain in place. The longer the ban is in place, the harder it will be for other exporters to compensate for the shortfall, said Peter Clark, an analyst at the International Grains Council in London. ChatGPT fever spreads to US workplace, sounding alarm for some. Many workers across the US are turning to ChatGPT to help with basic tasks, a Reuters Ipsos poll found, despite fears that have led many employers such as Microsoft and Google to curb its use. Anecdotal examples of people using ChatGPT to help with their day-to-day work include drafting emails, summarizing documents, and doing preliminary research. Some 28% of respondents to the online poll on artificial intelligence between July 7 and 17 said that they regularly use ChatGPT at work, while only 22% said their employers explicitly allowed such external tools. Reuters reported in June that Alphabet has cautioned employees about how they use the chatbot, including Google's Bard, at the same time as it markets the program globally. Google said although Bard can make undesired code suggestions, it helps programmers. It also said it's aimed to be transparent about the limitations of its technology. Everybody gets the benefit of that increased capability, but the information isn't completely secure and it can't be engineered out, he said, citing malicious prompts that can be used to get AI chatbots to disclose information. A blanket ban isn't warranted yet, but we need to tread carefully, Lewis said. Those in the AI space and those who have been following AI closely are well aware that you do not have to use ChatGPT or Bard. You can download your own personal AI bots which run on your local machine. This will be far more effective for companies to use without having to disclose their information to outside third-party companies. Unfortunately, this technology is still new and many are just taking the easy way out by utilizing what these big companies have to offer instead of actually trying to understand the underlying technology. China avoids climate change discussion despite extreme weather. Record heat and historic floods in China this summer have failed to ignite domestic public debate about how the world's top carbon polluter can mitigate climate change, leaving campaigners frustrated at an opportunity missed. While state media and officials have said in the past that climate change makes China more vulnerable to extreme weather, few have made the connection this year and have been more reluctant to link it to China's own emissions, now around a third of the global total and rising. Extreme weather nowadays is becoming more frequent, said 53-year-old resident in Hebei city of Zhuzhou, who gave his name only as Su. We can't comment on that, we are not the authorities. The summers are hotter than before, the winters are not as cold as before, said Su, whose crops and home were damaged by the floods. A Baidu search for the question, should China be more responsible for climate change, or variants of it, did not produce any articles critical of China's climate policy in the first few dozen results. Instead, the results, many from state media outlets, focus on China's leadership in the fight against climate change and calls for developed countries to take more responsibility. Despite being the second biggest economy in the world and claiming that they are no longer a developing nation, they call themselves a developing nation when it suits their agenda, and they call themselves a world leader when it suits their agenda. This doublespeak is not becoming of a country that intends to lead the world. But Fang Qiqing from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, who published a paper on what he termed Beijing's authoritarian environmentalism in June, said climate messaging was used differently. Like many other issues in China, climate change basically is used as an issue by media to glorify the state and the supreme leader, and also attack the United States and other Western countries, he said. I wonder why we call him supreme leader. We should just say king. There is only one person calling all the shots in China. A crackdown on NGOs, civil society and media freedoms under President Xi Jinping, or should I say Emperor Xi Jinping, has made any grassroots climate change very unlikely, forcing campaigners to adapt and try instead to influence an increasingly centralized leadership. I would say increasingly singular leadership. I think in general this seems to be a situation where they have kept sort of a very tight lid on freedom of speech to the point where they don't even know how to walk back, said Yi Fei Li, assistant professor of environmental studies at the New York University Shanghai campus. Despite the extreme weather, China has reinforced its message about energy security rather than climate change in recent months, said CREA's lead analyst Laurie Milivirta. In this context, emphasizing the role of China's ambition even to say that there are policies in place to bring them down would not fit the narrative and might hit too close to home, he said. Well, you can't make the emperor look bad. Clearly the emperor has no clothes. The odd behavior of subatomic particles may shake up physics. Washington. The peculiar wobble of subatomic particles called a muon in US laboratory experiments is making scientists increasingly suspect they are missing something in their understanding of physics, perhaps some unknown particle or force. Researchers on Thursday announced its new findings about the muon, a magnetic and negatively charged particle similar to its cousin the electron but 200 times more massive, in their experiment at the US Energy Department Fermi National Acceleratory Lab in Betteville, Illinois. We are looking for an indication that the muon is interacting with something that we do not know about. It could be anything, new particles, new forces, new dimensions, new features of space-time, anything, said Brendan Casey, a senior scientist at Fermilab and one of the authors of a research paper on the findings published in the journal Physics Review Letters. We have to be patient because we need the standard model prediction to catch up to us for us to make the strongest use of our data, Casey said. We are also very baffled because there are different ways to predict what our experiments should see and they don't agree well. So there is something very fundamental here we must be missing, which is very intriguing. There are many more things in the universe that we are still trying to understand, and with the advancements in science and technology, hopefully we will come to an understanding much sooner than later. Unfortunately, we don't live in an objective world right now and everything is subjective, and even science has become a subjectively debated topic whereby the scientific method seems to change according to how authorities feel that it suits their agenda, and therefore it is important for scientists to stick to the scientific method and understand that if you were to give in to political ideologues, we're not going to get anywhere anytime soon. Russia launches first space mission to moon in 47 years. Russia launched its first mission to the surface of the moon in nearly half a century in a bid to be the first country to land on the lunar South Pole. Moscow's Luna 25 mission lifted off on schedule from the Vostochny Cosmodrome in the Russian Far East. The Russian mission is racing against India, which sent up its own lander last month that is already orbiting the moon. Russia's space chief told Interfax the lander is expected to touch down on 21st August. As of earlier this week, India's Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft was due to reach the surface on 23rd of August. Looks like there's a race to the moon again, and this time it's between Russia and India. Looks like the US seems to be sitting out of this race, and China seems to have their own problems that they are facing. Let's see who reaches the south pole of the moon first. Poland continues to aggressively buy gold. Poland's National Bank has increased its gold holdings by 2.3 million ounces since the start of the year. The National Bank of Poland, NBP, increased its gold reserve for the fourth consecutive month in July as the country continues to aggressively stockpile on the precious metal. According to calculations by DGP newspaper, 720,000 ounces of gold were bought last month, valued at about $1.4 billion. This is more than in any of the previous 3 months. The paper estimated that the total gold reserves held by the Polish Central Bank has increased to 9.6 million ounces, or nearly 300 tons. Foreign currency reserves are primarily meant to ensure the financial stability of the economy. That's why the money is invested in safe and liquid assets, meaning those that can be quickly sold. However, they should also generate income. Since the beginning of this year, gold prices in global markets have increased by over 6%. It currently costs just over 1,900 per ounce. In terms of return rate since the beginning of the year, gold has performed the best among the main metals. I believe gold has already reached $2,000 per ounce. And it's not just Poland. Despite significant selling by Turkey that slowed net central bank gold buying in the second quarter, central banks added a record amount of gold to their reserves through the first half of 2023. Net central bank gold purchases totaled 387 tons through the first half of the year, according to data compiled by the World Gold Council. That was the highest first half total since the organization started compiling quarterly data in 2000. So in 23 years, central banks are buying the most amount of gold ever. Yet, there are traders and investors and investing firms out there and hedge funds telling you that you should be investing in government bonds as opposed to buying gold. I think you should follow their actions as opposed to their words. Gold prices to breach all-time highs. Some expect bullions to hit 2,500. Gold prices are on track to rally to an all-time highs in 2024 on the back of tapering interest rates and looming recessionary fears that elevates its role as a safe haven asset. I do see gold move above 2,100 in late 2023 and early 2024 as a trading level, said TD Securities Managing Director and Global Head of Commodity Strategies, Bart Millett. I am positive on gold as I believe the Fed will tilt policy away from its current restrictive mode, and I believe this will happen before the 2% inflation target is reached, Millett told CNBC in an email. Recessionary fears has caused many analysts to rethink their targets, and my target is 2,500 by the end of 2024. Much of this has to do with the fact that recessionary forces may take hold beginning later this year and gain steam in 2024, said David Neuhauser, founder of Livermore Partners. 2024 is when I see gold breaking out and reaching new highs and beyond. Neuhauser said he expects stagflation to persist in the global economy for the next few years as inflation falls between 3 to 5%. As we can see that gold has been hitting the 2,000 mark multiple times over here, and it's a matter of time before it breaks that ceiling. Just so people can have a better understanding, if you had a 5% inflation, it will only take you about 14 to 15 years before you lose half your money's value. That means in 15 years, prices of everything will double with just a 5% inflation. Unfortunately, most people don't understand this and are going to be in for a rude awakening when the time comes. Universal Music and Google in talks over deal to combat AI deepfakes. Universal Music Group, one of the world's leading music companies, and Google are in negotiation to license melodies and vocal tracks of artists to be used in songs generated by artificial intelligence, according to a report from the Financial Times. Mainstream AI usage has sparked concern among major industry leaders due to the amount of deepfakes using musician likeness. Clips of AI-generated Drake and Kanye West began to go viral around April. Many have since been taken down. In April, Universal Music Group asked streaming services like Spotify to remove all AI-generated content due to copyright infringement. A few weeks later, Spotify said it was ramping up policy on the platform and began actively taking down content in violation. However, some artists are fully on board with their voices being used in AI-generated music. Grimes said she's eager to be a guinea pig for this type of content and will split royalties 50-50 with the creators. We are living and entering a new age. It's a matter of time before we see how AI actually transforms society. The question is whether it does it for the better or for the worst. If people were to be mindlessly using AI, then it's definitely going to be for the worst. But if people were to actually have some autonomy and actually were to use their brains, then maybe we might actually use AI for the betterment of society. Only time will tell. Moscow Metro to join Russia's digital ruble trial. CBDC gathering pace. The Russian central bank will pilot its digital ruble on Moscow's metro system as the nation's CBDC project begins to gather pace. The central bank earlier this week suggested that the pilot, which officially began on August 15, would center around smaller retailers located in 11 unnamed Russian cities. Letipov added that Moscow Metro was currently updating its IT networks to allow it to accept payments made in the digital ruble, and should the pilot prove successful, testing for fair payment will be expanded to other forms of public transport, Letipov said. The central bank, meanwhile, hopes to add more commercial banking partners to the pilot as soon as possible. Olga Skorobogatova, the bank's first deputy governor, stated that a second group of 16 banks is already ready to join very quickly. Not all banks appear to be keen. The biggest association of Russian banks earlier this month expressed concerns about the token. And everyone should be expressing concerns about CDBC. The more power you give government over your money, the more likely for you to lose it. Unfortunately, people will have to learn this the hard way, just like our ancestors did. Since very few people actually study or understand history, I guess history will have to just repeat itself before people actually learn. Thank you for staying to the end of the video. Please like, share and subscribe. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I'll see you again tomorrow.